Hulk Hogan's name has been larger than life for decades, the symbol of professional wrestling itself, a man who built an empire in the ring and carried the spirit of Hulkamania into arenas, homes, and hearts all across the world. That is why the morning of July 24, 2025, will forever remain one of the most shocking days in sports and entertainment history. The news came suddenly from Clearwater, Florida. Hulk Hogan, born Terry Gene Bollea, had been found dead in his home at the age of 71. To millions of fans, it felt impossible that the immortal wrestler, the hero of countless childhoods, could simply be gone. At first, headlines reported it as natural causes, pointing to age, health history, and decades of physical wear and tear. But the truth turned out to be far more complicated. What seemed at first like an ordinary tragedy quickly became one of the most mysterious investigations in recent memory. That morning, it was his wife, Sky Daly, who discovered him. She had returned earlier than expected from a wellness retreat, expecting to walk into the usual rhythm of their household. Hulk Hogan was a creature of habit, especially in his later years. She imagined he might be meditating in his study, training in the gym, or relaxing in the Florida sun. Instead, she stepped into a house that was eerily silent. She called his name, but no response came back. As she made her way through the home, her steps guided her toward the gym, the sacred space that Hogan had kept alive for decades. Inside that gym, decorated with championship belts, motivational banners, and years of sweat and discipline, Sky found her husband lying still on the floor near a weight bench. He wasn't breathing. His skin looked pale. Though there were no signs of a struggle, something about the scene struck her immediately as wrong, almost staged. She called emergency services in a panic. Paramedics rushed in, attempted CPR, and transported him to Morton Plant Hospital. Doctors did everything they could, but at 11:17 a.m., Hulk Hogan was officially pronounced dead. At first, most assumed the cause was natural. After all, this was a man who had put his body through unimaginable strain. Years of brutal matches, over 24 surgeries, and constant training left scars that no one could see from the outside. A heart attack or stroke seemed logical. But when investigators stepped inside his home, especially into that gym, they noticed details that didn't add up. His gym was spotless, unnaturally so. Not a single towel draped over a bench, no open water bottle, no scattered dumbbells. Everything was perfectly aligned, polished, and sterile. It looked less like a space used for training and more like a showroom frozen in time. For someone as active as Hogan, it didn't make sense. The bigger shock came when investigators checked his security system. Hulk Hogan was known to be obsessive about safety and privacy. His mansion had a state-of-the-art setup: cameras, motion sensors, encrypted backups, and layered systems designed to prevent tampering. Yet the entire system had been disabled manually from inside the house. There was no evidence of a glitch or outage. Someone had entered his system and shut it off. No forced entry was found anywhere, no alarms were tripped, and nothing seemed stolen. That discovery alone was enough for local police to hand the case over to the FBI. Soon, federal agents poured over the property, not looking for trophies or memorabilia, but for answers. Digital forensic experts retrieved smart home logs, cloud backups, and phone records. The pattern remained bizarre: a perfectly staged gym, a disabled security system, no signs of intrusion. What complicated everything further was a mysterious phone call Hulk Hogan had received just 3 nights before his death. According to Sky, that call arrived late in the evening. Hogan answered, listened quietly for nearly a minute, responded with only one word, and then hung up. She remembered the look on his face: pale, shaken, almost fearful. She had never seen him like that. He didn't explain what the call was about, but it unsettled him deeply. Later, investigators confirmed the call had not come from an ordinary line. It had been routed through a complex chain of foreign servers, bouncing across multiple countries, making it nearly impossible to trace. Even the FBI's cybercrime experts struggled to find its origin. To this day, the contents of the call remain classified, but sources have suggested it may have been the trigger that set events in motion. The haunting part of this revelation was that Hogan had spent his last few years in peace, finally building a healthier lifestyle. Guided by Sky, a yoga instructor and wellness coach, He had traded chaos for meditation, clean eating, and discipline. His son Nick described him as healthier than men half his age, and Sky said he seemed the happiest she had ever seen him. For a man who had spent years under the pressures of fame, scandals, and health struggles, it was as if he had finally found calm. That is why the phone call felt like an earthquake. Whatever was said that night had shaken the foundation of his new life. As investigators tried to piece together the final days of Hulk Hogan, they also dug into his past, because no mystery exists in isolation. Hogan's personal life was as dramatic and complicated as the wrestling storylines he starred in. He married Linda Claridge in 1983, and together they had 2 children, Brooke and Nick. To fans, they looked like the picture-perfect American family. That image was cemented when they launched their reality TV show, Hogan Knows Best, in 2005. But cracks began to show, and in 2007, scandal hit when Christiane Plant, who had worked with Brooke on her music career, claimed she had an affair with Hogan. He denied it fiercely in his autobiography, but the damage was done. Linda filed for divorce after 24 years of marriage, leading to a messy and public split. The aftermath was brutal on Hogan. Behind his public bravado, he battled depression and even admitted to having suicidal thoughts. He credited his friend and co-star Layla Ali for helping pull him back from the edge during that dark period. Though he survived, the scars were permanent. In 2010, he married Jennifer McDaniel in a quieter ceremony, but that relationship eventually fell apart too, ending in 2022 without the chaos of his first divorce, but leaving him once again alone. It was Sky Daly who brought stability back into his world. A yoga instructor, mother of 3, and decades younger than Hogan, she became not only his partner but his source of peace. He proposed to her in July 2023 at a wedding reception, joking with his trademark brother catchphrase, and 2 months later, they were married in a simple ceremony in Clearwater. Sky wore a radiant dress, sparkling with diamonds, while Hogan, older and grayer but still larger than life, looked truly happy. Nick attended, but Brooke was absent, later explaining that she was on a personal journey that kept her away. Despite some disapproval from outsiders about the age gap, Sky's calming influence was undeniable. To Hogan's family, she was his anchor. In those final 2 years, Hulk Hogan had retreated from the chaos of fame. He focused on his health, found joy in smaller routines, and embraced the quieter life he once thought impossible. That is what makes the mystery of his death so unsettling. If it were simply a matter of old age or failing health, the story might have ended with a tragic but understandable chapter. Instead, the strange details, the sterilized gym, the disabled security, the cryptic phone call painted a far darker picture. The FBI has kept much of its findings quiet, releasing only limited updates, and stating that the investigation is ongoing. But whispers from inside suggest they believe Hogan may have been the target of something larger, something that went beyond personal health or accidents. Whether it was connected to his past, to financial dealings, to personal disputes, or to something entirely hidden from the public, no one knows for sure. What is certain is that the death of Hulk Hogan left a hole not just in wrestling, but in popular culture itself. He wasn't just a performer. He was a symbol of an era, the face that carried wrestling into mainstream global attention. Generations grew up watching him defeat giants, preach the power of training, prayers, and vitamins, and embody the superhero-like energy of the 1980s and 1990s wrestling boom. His larger-than-life character influenced movies, merchandise, and entire waves of wrestlers who followed him. Even as controversies surrounded his personal life, his impact on the sport and entertainment never faded. For Sky, the memory of that quiet morning will never fade. She had walked into what she thought was just another day and instead found herself in the middle of a nightmare. For Nick and Brooke, the loss was complicated by years of family struggles but still deeply painful. And for millions of fans, the idea of Hulk Hogan gone forever feels like a part of childhood itself has vanished. Yet the lingering questions remain. Why was his gym staged like a showroom? Who shut down his security system? And what exactly was said in that mysterious phone call? Until those questions are answered, Hulk Hogan's final chapter will remain shrouded in darkness, a tragic mystery hanging over the memory of one of the most famous athletes of all time. Even in death, Hulk Hogan's story feels like something out of the ring, larger than life, dramatic, filled with twists, heartbreak, and unanswered questions. Fans may never know the full truth about his final days, but what they do know is that the legend of Hulk Hogan will live forever. His life was filled with triumph and turmoil, victories and betrayals, peace and chaos. In many ways, his final mystery reflects his entire existence, complex, dramatic, and unforgettable. Hulk Hogan's final days have left behind a story that is both heartbreaking and mysterious, one that continues to raise questions even after his passing. His son Nick Hogan opened up about how those moments felt, revealing that his father was counting the minutes until his wife Sky Daly came home. That small detail carried an emotional weight that few could ignore, because Hulk Hogan had finally found someone who gave him peace and stability after a life of chaos, and yet he spent his last hours without her by his side. For the FBI, this was more than just an emotional note, it was context. Families that carry broken relationships, children who have drifted away, ex-spouses who parted bitterly, and years of disputes can all become points of tension when someone like Hulk Hogan dies. Investigators knew they could not look at only his last 24 hours. They had to consider 40 years of history filled with shadows, debts, enemies, and unresolved pain. At first glance, many assumed his death at 71 was natural, especially because of his age and the toll years of wrestling had taken on his body. But contradictions appeared almost immediately. Only 2 months before his death, in May 2025, Hogan underwent a high-risk medical procedure, a 4-level anterior cervical discectomy and fusion, also called an ACDF surgery. This is an extremely difficult surgery, especially at his age, and it was not surprising given the damage his body had endured across decades of punishing matches, falls, and surgeries. Fans worried about him, but Hogan was determined to recover and push forward. That is when rumors began swirling. Radio personality Todd Clem, better known as Bubba the Love Sponge, made a shocking claim live on air, saying that Hogan had slipped into a coma after surgery and that his family had already been called to the hospital to say goodbye. The claim set off panic across social media. Fans feared the end of Hulkamania had already arrived. But Sky Daly, Hogan's wife, quickly went public to deny it all. She posted on Instagram that he was not in a coma, that his heart was strong, and that there had been no brain damage or loss of oxygen. Her words calmed many of his fans, and in the weeks that followed, Hogan was even seen smiling, greeting people, and training again. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and whispers grew louder about the dangers of his surgery. Some medical experts suggested that it was possible his phrenic nerve, the nerve responsible for controlling the diaphragm and allowing breathing, had been damaged during the surgery. If that were true, it could mean that Hogan might suddenly stop breathing at any time. This theory became haunting when, just weeks later, on July 24, 2025, Sky returned home from her trip and found her husband unresponsive. Her 911 call revealed her raw panic as she cried out that her husband was not breathing. This was no rumor. This was real. From that moment, theories exploded. Had the surgery created a hidden ticking time bomb in his body? Or had someone taken advantage of his fragile condition to do something far darker? Even his family could not agree. Brooke Hogan, his daughter, who had grown distant from him in recent years, stepped back into the picture with urgency. Despite her estrangement, she demanded a full autopsy and even offered to pay for it herself. She did not want her father's death left to speculation. In the wrestling world, opinions split sharply. Triple H gave a heartfelt tribute to Hogan, calling him one of the greatest to ever step into the ring. But Bubba the Love Sponge fueled the fire again, claiming Hogan's death may not have been an accident at all, though he offered no real proof. That left fans and the media in chaos. Was Hogan's death simply the natural collapse of a body that had endured too much? Was it a result of surgical error? Or was there something much darker behind the silence of his mansion? The FBI had no choice but to dig deeper. And what they reportedly discovered shook everything further. A leak suggested that during a second forensic sweep of Hogan's mansion, agents uncovered a hidden basement room, one no one outside his closest circle knew existed. The room, according to whispers, was carefully organized, containing files and documents that seemed unusual for a retired wrestler. The most chilling claim was that one folder had been dated just a single day before Hogan's death, and it appeared to connect to the mysterious phone call he had received late at night 3 days earlier, the very call that Sky described to police as leaving her husband shaken and afraid. If that claim is true, the implications are disturbing. Was Hogan protecting himself from someone? Was he being pressured or threatened? Was he gathering information he did not want anyone else to see? Or was this hidden room simply a private archive blown out of proportion in retellings? The FBI has refused to confirm or deny the story, saying only that their work is still ongoing and that no foul play has been officially proven. Brooke Hogan eventually said she was satisfied with what she learned after meeting with police and reviewing body cam footage, including the 911 call from Sky. She admitted that hearing Sky's voice calling for help was far more painful for her than even seeing her father's body. She accepted that an autopsy had been performed and believed the explanation given to her. Yet, for many, the unanswered rumors about the hidden room and the strange phone call keep the shadows alive. This leaves two versions of Hulk Hogan's end. The official story says he died of natural causes connected to age and health struggles. But the whispered story suggests there may have been secrets hidden in his final days, secrets no one was ever supposed to uncover. This tension between fact and speculation is what keeps Hogan's death at the center of mystery. Even as the questions swirl, fans continue to celebrate his legacy. Hulk Hogan was not just a wrestler, he was an icon. From the moment he lifted and slammed Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, he cemented his place in history. He was a larger-than-life figure who helped bring professional wrestling into the mainstream. He appeared in television shows, movies, and reality series, and even after scandals that might have ended another man's career, including the infamous sex tape trial, he found ways to rebuild and remain in the public eye. The Rock himself once called Hogan a game-changer, and many wrestlers credit him with building the bridge between wrestling and pop culture. In Clearwater, Florida, the city Hogan called home, fans have honored him with murals painted across brick walls and storefronts. Many carry his famous catchphrase, "What you gonna do, brother?" which defined an era. These tributes are not just art, they are acts of devotion to a man who was larger than life, a legend who shaped the world of wrestling forever. But behind the murals and tributes, the investigation has not stopped. Federal agents continue to examine his digital devices, comb through secure folders, and decode encrypted files. They are reviewing call logs, emails, and text messages. They are looking through years of medical records, comparing old files with recent scans and surgical notes. Toxicology reports remain under review, and every possibility is still on the table. At the same time, legal battles are unfolding. Sky Daily is preparing a medical malpractice lawsuit, believing that something went wrong during Hogan's last surgery and led to his death. Nick Hogan is also entering the legal fight, reportedly filing a lawsuit against Bubba the Love Sponge for defamation, arguing that the reckless and false claims damaged the Hogan family name. Though divided by grief, the family is united in one way: they want to protect Hogan's legacy and defend his name. Still, haunting questions remain. What did Hogan know before he died? Why had he encrypted some of his files recently? Why did that mysterious phone call shake him so badly? Was he afraid of someone? Was the hidden basement room really what the leaks claim it was? Or are fans and investigators chasing ghosts that will never have clear answers? The truth may never be fully known, and that is what keeps the story alive. Hulk Hogan may be gone, but the mystery of his final days continues to linger in the minds of his fans and investigators. His story remains unfinished, trapped between the official record of a natural death and the whispered suggestions of secrets buried in the shadows. What cannot be questioned, however, is his impact. Hulk Hogan's presence in wrestling was unmatched. His charisma, larger-than-life personality, and ability to connect with audiences made him one of the most famous wrestlers of all time. He inspired generations, changed the industry, and left behind a legacy that is still felt today. Hulkamania lives on, but so do the darker questions that hang over his final chapter. In the end, Hogan's story is both triumph and tragedy. He was a man who reached the highest peaks of fame, endured personal and public struggles, and found peace in his later years only for it all to end under mysterious and heartbreaking circumstances. As fans remember the legend who once told them to say their prayers and eat their vitamins, investigators continue to search for the truth hidden in his last days. And somewhere between the tributes and the secrets, between the official story and the whispers of something darker, lies the real story of Hulk Hogan's final moments, a story that may never be fully told.